Hello, welcome to Flower Juice. My name is John McDonald, and today's design is basically going to be an Advent wreath. Now, this is something you can make for Christmas. This is something you could make a little bit in advance as well if you want to just do the greenery base, and then you could add a little bit of decoration just when you bring it into the house. So what we've got is we've got a wreath ring, we've got some nice foliage, especially this kind of silver pine, and some cypress. I've also got some little bits for decoration, but the main thing with an Advent wreath is that we need to have candles. Now, I'm just going to use these very simple candles, and we'll just put these in first. So what I did to make them secure was I didn't have any candle holders as such. I just cut some wire, but you could use thin twigs or cane, make 4 pieces or 5 pieces or even 3 pieces, tape them on, and that allows you to secure your candle into the actual base. The other thing as well is you don't need to then push the candle down into the base, which is going to create a big hole. And to be honest, even if you push it in, it's not going to make it any more stable. So what we're going to do is we're going to build up our wreath. And really for this, I quite like the idea of making it more grouped rather than just mixing all the flowers. So we're going to do groups of foliage. I just think this pine looks absolutely beautiful. So what I'm doing, I'm taking off the needles so we can insert that nice and easily. And I think there's 2 ways to approach making like an Advent wreath. You can make a base that's going to last well. So basically pine, foliages, dried materials like cones, these will all last really well for the whole period. But there's no reason why you can't put in some fresh flowers as well and then just replace them as you like or as it's needed. So you could start off with your base being quite artificial, really just the greenery, but then closer to actual Christmas, you could add some fresh flowers. So it's really up to you. And it depends, I suppose, in lots of ways on where you're going to put it. I always think this would look really nice on a coffee table so that you're actually looking slightly down onto it. On a dining room table, you tend to be looking in from the sides, so it's worth taking that into account, that will change your line of vision. So if you are looking at it more from the side, you need to make sure that the bottom areas are nicely finished. Whereas if you're going to look down from the top, you want to make sure that these inner areas are actually finished quite nicely as well. But if you're making one for yourself, then just take your time, enjoy the process, and you can make it to suit your own circumstances, where you're going to put it. So we're just building this up. Now, if you wanted, you could use totally different candles. I'm kind of going for a white and silver sort of theme here, but there's no reason why you couldn't go red or gold. The colour scheme's up to you. It depends what materials you've got as well. This is greenery from my hedge in the garden, and we've actually got very big hedges here that we're constantly cutting. So to take a little bit off to use for flower arrangements is actually a great way of just helping make use of that material. But as you can see, this just takes a wee bit of time just to get the base basically got a bit of coverage. Now, other thing as well, some of these pines can be quite sticky, like the resin that's actually in them. So you might find that you end up getting a little bit covered in resin, but it will come off. It's not the end of the world. But you could wear gloves as well, if you prefer. Now, with bits like this, I really hate wasting anything. So especially if you're going to buy the foliage from the florist, just make sure that you cut it in such a way that you can use as much of that greenery as possible. Right, I think this is quite good. And now we can add our foliage that's a little bit more interesting. So I do have a little bit of ivy, and I think ivy actually really works well for Christmas. And it can give us a little bit of a feeling of movement into the actual design as well. So, but this pittosporum is also really beautiful, so we'll keep that more to where we have our green foliage, our green pine, should I say. So that's just helping to keep those areas more of a cluster or a grouping. Whereas this eucalyptus, we're going to add to our areas that have this silver pine. So we're just working to basically hide any gaps, give it a nice coverage. And with the eucalyptus, you can split it down into little units that will go in really nicely. Even with this eucalyptus, you can split it down into just a stem with 2 leaves and go in quite deep with that to help hide your foam. Right, so we've basically got our base covered. Now we're wanting to add our details. So I've got some spray roses, some big roses, I've got a little bit of gypsophila and some pine cones and some little stars. So we'll start with our roses. Now, you might want to use non-fresh, which is fine, not a problem at all. you need to decide, are you happy to have a fresh wreath where you're going to possibly have to replace some of the flowers at some point, or are you wanting it to be completely, you know, like maintenance free? So if that's the case, you can use artificial, or you can get fresh items that have been dipped in wax. Specifically at Christmas, you get a lot of things like that, and they're really nice. They'll last for a long time. So that's a good option as well. So it is kind of fresh, but their shelf life is so much longer. And you also get really nice like fruits, like apples and pears that have been dipped as well. So these tend to come from Italy, and they're just beautiful. But these little spray roses tend to last quite well. And I'll just take into the centre here as well. So as you can see, I'm building this up and we're getting a nice effect. So it's entirely up to you to choose the balance, if you want it to be more foliage based or more flower based. It's just whatever your preference is. Essentially the ring or the wreath is giving you a base for you to make your own version on. Right, so I think we might add just a little touch there. This is one of these things you can get yourself a coffee and you can really enjoy the process and take your time. Now we'll add our gypsophila. So anyway, I'm thinking this gives it like a little touch, like a little bit of snow. So you can make it as snowy as you want. I don't want to go mad with it. I think gypsophila is nice if you just use a touch. You don't even need your scissors for this. You can just basically take it with your nails. So, because it's winter, I wanted to add a few cones, and I think the cones really make it feel much more wintry. And these I've just put onto a wire so that they're easily inserted. Now, I do like a little bit of asparagus fern. I think it just adds, so we've got this nice line of the ivy, which is creating a little bit of movement in here. And then I think the asparagus fern is just creating another little layer. So if you think of it as like layers, what we're doing is we're creating a structure with our grouping of the materials. But then when you overlay something like this, it just gives it a 3-dimension. And it gives that contrast that will make a design much more exciting. So we've got our wreath, and just to finish off then, I've got a few little stars that we're just going to place in. Now if this is just sitting on a table, you don't really need to do anything other than place them on, but you could glue them on with cold glue if you want, or you could even glue a wire to the back, just make a wee loop, glue it on, and that's it, ready to go in. but we don't particularly need to do that here. It would be nice if I had another star, so hang on. And just because, essentially, we've got 4 candles, 4 weeks, so let's have 4 stars. And there we go. This is our Christmas Advent wreath. Not complicated to do. You can really make use of materials that you have. You don't have to go out and buy a lot of different things. Just see what you've got. And really, it's all about texture. It's all about the contrast between different materials. So a nice design to do, and I would suggest give it a go. Why not? It's a nice thing to have in the house. So thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you haven't already subscribed, then click here to subscribe. We have new videos every week and we'd love you to join us for our next design. So until then, stay safe and see you soon.